Today, I'm in the Alabama hills, looking towards the eastern Sierra Nevada in California, and it is something else. Oh, it's also quite dark with a lot of boulders around. So, to give you an idea of the area where I am, have you ever seen the film Tremors with Kevin Bacon? Because that is what this is. It's just this immense boulder field with this absolutely amazing backdrop of the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains behind me, with just a dusting of snow. So it's perfect. The compositions that you could find here are endless, but it's very difficult to find a composition that works because there's just so much going on. So to try and find something with interest in all the right areas, so some nice boulders on the thirds, a bit of foreground interest, good mountain shot in the background, it's actually quite difficult. So the sky behind me has got a lovely red glow to it. Normally I'd be quite excited by that, but today it's worrying me a bit because to the east there's cloud, and what I need is that pure first light to hit the mountains behind me, and that cloud is going to obscure that light. Now I'm only going for one image. When you do a sunrise shoot, just aim for one image. Once you've got that one image, then you can relax and you can have a walk around, experiment, get some nice compositions. But if you come here in the morning not really knowing what you're looking for, not having a pre-visualized image in your head, then there's a good chance that you'll just end up messing about while the light just goes. So for this shoot, I plan on stitching together a panorama. With regards to filters, I'm just using my Heliopan polarizer. I would use an ND grad to balance out the sky slightly, but I don't think it's going to be too bright, so I don't think it's going to be too troublesome. And when you use an ND filter on a panoramic, you can sometimes get this kind of uneven black line across your image. Not all the time, but it can be a hazard. So to keep things simple, just using a polarizer. When you shoot a panoramic, spend all of your time getting this tripod level. You want the ball on the spirit level in the middle. If your tripod's not level, it's not going to stitch together very well, and you'll end up losing about 60% of your image. So definitely invest time in getting this level. Well, it's about 3 minutes until sunrise, and there's still a lot of cloud that way. So I'm slightly concerned that I'm not going to get that bright red light just kissing the tops of the mountains. Which is a shame, because that's the shot I've envisaged, that's the shot I want. So we'll see what happens in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And if it doesn't materialise, well, I'll just have to try something else. I imagine that in a location like this, black and white photography might do very well when the sun's up and there's a bit more contrast. Either way though, this is amazing. There's nowhere like this back home. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this light is going to happen. It might still, but I can't see it happening with the clouds blocking the direct sunlight. So I'm going to take a shot now whilst there's a good balance between the foreground and the sky, and I don't need any neutral density filters. It's quite simple this. You can buy a piece of equipment called a nodal rail, which allows your camera to rotate from the center point under the lens, which gives you a much better stitch. But I've got to be honest, I've never needed one. So long as you get your tripod level, then it just seems to work quite well. Photoshop does a really good job of stitching it together, and now actually you can stitch these together in Lightroom, which will give you a big raw panoramic that you can then work on and process. Perfect. Right, so that's my panoramic done. So that's the image I wanted. So I really made sure I had plenty of time to get there, get set up, wait for the light, get the shot. That's the shot I wanted. Now, all of this is free time to explore, free time to experiment. There's a couple of boulders over here, which I think will make a great foreground, and this light's just lovely. It's not going to stick around very long. See this is really good fun. There's no pressure now. I've got the shot I came for, sort of, and now I can play around with these boulders, and it's like a big playground. I've gone for a vertical composition. We've got these two huge boulders in the foreground, just getting kissed by the morning light. And then we've got the mountains and more boulders further in the background. Vertical composition, again, an EC2 stop filter, graduated. Heliopan polarizer, just to get that sky nice and blue. And it looks really well, looks really good. Now, I don't know this area at all, and I'm going to assume it's easy to get lost. It's a bit like a rabbit warren in here. So I'm not gonna run around desperately trying to find a composition while the light's good, because the best of the light just happened. So instead, I'm looking for high contrast, black and white. And what's important with that is composition and texture. So I'm just going to walk around, see what I can find. The sun's getting higher now, and I'm still searching for that black and white high contrast image. I mentioned before composition and how that's important. So what I'm looking for is just one clear foreground object, and then that backdrop behind me. And on that foreground interest, there has to be texture, and it has to be a good shape, it has to be the right size, it has to be in the right place. So what I'm looking for is quite specific, but I'll keep looking, keep searching. I'm hoping that I'll find what I'm looking for. Oh God, it's hard work getting around here. This area looks promising. Yeah, definitely. So, I think I've finally found a composition. After jumping over many boulders. We've got the mountains in the background, quite, lit up quite bright by the morning light, but the foreground interest is still in shade, and I think that's going to give me amazing contrast and should work really well for a black and white image. So let's see what happens. You can forget an ND graduated filter here, absolutely pointless, and it will destroy your image. Instead, bracket your exposures, or I say you, me, I've bracketed my exposures 1.5 stops either side. That gives me exposure for the bright mountains in the background, and it gives me exposure for the foreground, and then it gives me a nice middle exposure. So when I put my 3 images together in Lightroom, I will merge them all into an HDR, but all that does is it gives me immense tonal range from the highlights all the way through to the shadows, which will just allow me to lift enough detail in the foreground and retain enough detail in the background. Now, it's personal preference as to how far you push those boundaries, but for me, I like to keep things looking as natural as possible and as close to my eye as possible. So what I'm looking at now is basically the tonal range and the balance that I want to achieve in my image. What I'll do is I'll walk you through my composition. So we've got this big rock in the foreground with nice texture, and that's just going to bring your eye into the image. We've got this amazing texture and these patterns here. Now this is going to draw the eye up to this boulder, this here. So this is the focal point, this is the main foreground focal point I was talking about. And when your eye comes to this, it's going to go left to the mountains in the background. And it took me about 20 minutes to find this composition. And I think it should work really well as an image. We'll see. So if you want more information, things like camera settings, location, you want to have a better look at the images that I've taken, I'll write a blog about this trip, and you can find a link to that in the description. You can also find a link to my Facebook, Twitter, that kind of thing, all in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos, because there will be more to come, please subscribe to my channel.